Hello everybody, I'm Deanna from Nana's Journey. This pattern is a charm pack pattern, but I went through pages and pages of charm packs online and I couldn't find one I liked. So I went to the Fat Quarter bundles and I found two that I think will work. They are Midnight Spectrum and Sapphire Spectrum. I got those at Fat Quarter Shop. And then I've got Century Solid Snow for the background. And this is Kimberbell's, I've got it written here somewhere, Kimberbell's Navy Linen texture for the border. And I was wrong. This is Kimberbell's Linen Navy texture. This is the backing. This one is Belle Isle Navy Dotted Grid. So I got all of those from Fat Quarter Shop, except for the pattern, which you get at Missouri Star Quilt Company. Well, if you search in their website for 9-Patch Madness, you will be able to download this pattern. And it calls for 4 packages of 5-inch, charm packs. So 4 packages charm packs for the prints and 4 for the background. Okay, each charm pack usually comes with about 42 squares, an average. Some are less, so you need to be careful when you look for charm packs that you look at the quantity. And 42 times 5 is 210. And she mentioned that there was a mistake here. You do need like an additional, I think it's 12 squares of the background because you're going to snowball some of the blocks. You'll also have enough to make this, sorry, you've got it sideways for you, to make this bonus table runner. So here's the Sapphire bundle. And this is the Midnight Spectrum. It's the same thing. So now I just need to cut my 5-inch squares. So I'll need 210 squares of the print and about 222 squares of the white background. Okay, I have got all my 5-inch squares cut out and I believe I have enough whites. Just stack, put these here and here, and then the prints will go here. And I'm going to do this randomly. I'm just going to count 30 pieces of fabric, and that will make one pile. And then I will just make 5 piles of 30 pieces, so it will be very random. Okay, I think that's 30. Okay, so we'll just stick those in the middle. And now I will just continue and collecting for the other 4 piles. All right, I've got my stacks of 30 because I need 30 blocks, and this is how the block is going to go together. I will just take a piece and sew it down the side, and then I'll come down the next row, flip it over so right sides together, flip this over so right sides together, and then I'll start back at the top, and I'll just keep going down until they're all done. Then when that's done, I will attach this row to these rows, and it will just be totally random and scrappy. I'm not going to pay attention to whether it goes this way or this way, because the blocks are going to get rotated anyways. So let's head to the sewing machine. Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stack and this stack, sew all of these, then I'm going to sew all of these, then I'm going to sew all of these, and then I'll press them. Instead of going row by row, I'm just going to do a stack at a time. I have some units ready to go, and I need to finish the rows. I'll just add the print to the white and continue sewing. Now that I have the rows made, I can put the rows together in blocks. I will fold this over, sew it, fold it back, do the other side, fold it over, sew it, fold it back, and press. I have the middle rows pressed to the inside and the outer two rows pressed to the outside. When I put these together, because they are pressed in opposite directions, they will be able to nest and lock together, and it will lay real nice and be less bulky. So now back to the sewing machine. Okay, I've got these 2 rows sewn together and pressed. Now I just need to add this row, sew, fold it back and press, and do that to the rest of the blocks. Okay, now that we have the blocks together, I need to cut down the middle this way and this way. So I took some glue line tape and I marked my ruler at the 2 1/4 inch mark. I'm going to line that up. 2/4 inches in will get me to the middle. Have a line of your ruler go across this seam to help you stay square. Cut. Turn around and do the same thing to this side. Now you're going to take these and turn them this way. We're going to flip these, put right sides together, sew down the seam line, and then when we press, we're going to press one to the right and one to the left so that when these rows get put together, these seams will nest. So let's get to the sewing machine. Okay, I've got those pressed, opposite directions. I'm going to nest the seams. Okay, I took those white squares and I marked a line diagonally from corner to corner and then another a 1/2 inch down. And these will be my seam lines. And I believe I'm putting it on these corners. Yes, so I will line that up there. And this there. Actually, be lining it this way. So that the shorter one is towards the outside. Then I'm going to sew along these lines and then I'll be back. Okay, for marking these lines, these blue lines that I sewed on the seam. I used the fine line mark Be Gone. It comes off with water, and I just thought I'd show you. Oops, that got wet there. That was just water. And now the marks are gone. With the friction pins, you can erase them with the iron because the heat gets rid of them. So now I just need to cut between these. And I have 1/2 square triangle, and that will go there. Cut this one in between those seams, and I'll have another 1/2 square and another one. Okay, let me get this pressed. Okay, there is our finished block, and I just need to do 29 more of those, and then we'll set them side by side. These are the 1/2 square triangles, and I am just going to cut these all down to 3 3/4 inch. This is the Debbie Tucker Trimmer 2. It does the 1/4 inch and 3/4 inch sizes. Which I don't use very often, but I'm glad I have it at the moment. Since these will always vary in size a little bit, I'm gonna go with the one that's, I think they will all be able to fit 3 3/4. This one had just barely fit a 4 inch, and the other one was just under 4 inch. So I can make them all 3 3/4 inch, I believe. And then we can do something extra with those, but they'll all be the same size, so that'll be perfect. So now I need to get sewing to finish up those blocks. Okay, I have all the blocks done. They've all been snowballed, and there are threads everywhere. So now I need to put them in rows of 5 per row and 6 rows. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to take that's the first block. We are going to match these right here like this, and these 2 little squares together. Now, what that will do as it goes together, it will make this secondary pattern and this pattern. So if you're putting it together and you're not getting this design or this design, then you need to rotate your blocks. But you know, you can easily mix. Whoops, that was the wrong block. You can easily rotate them so that you have different ones, so that you don't have the same design in there. So I will put a row of 5. That one looks okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I will sew these 5 together in a row. And as usual, when sewing rows together, you just put right sides together, sew down, flip it back. And I will sew that one, flip it over, put these right sides together, sew, flip it over, put these right sides together, sew, flip it over, and press. And when I press, I will press them all to one side, and the next row will be pressed all to the other side, so that when I put those rows together, the seams will nest because they are going opposite directions. So, onto the sewing machine. Okay, I've run into a problem that I was afraid I would. I've done a Missouri Star tutorial before and I had this problem, but I was hoping that I wouldn't this time. They tell you to do from corner to corner, and I did, but there's no seam allowance in either of these. There's a teeny bit, there's a few, and I'm sure it's my sewing, where there isn't any. And what that means is the points are going to be cut off, like on here. The points aren't going to be like this. It'll still be okay because the overall effect will still be good, but these half square triangles are not going to have good points, and that's too bad. I like patterns that allow you to do the block that are a little bit oversized so you can trim them down to the exact measurements, and that's what I like about the Debbie Tucker rulers. But anyways, that's how it's going, and that's the reality. Okay, this is the top. It's all finished. Now I need to put the back on. And since I have a bunch of leftover squares and these rectangles that was, extra after you cut the squares out, I am going to just put these together for the back, just right next to each other, so it'll just be a bunch of squares. And then I'll use the rectangles down the side to help use that up. And we'll see if I have enough. Okay, I'm going to gather the back like I did the front, just random orders, and make one pile. One pile will be one row. I believe there are more plains than prints, so I will try and keep that in mind when picking, although I won't really be paying all that much attention, so I can start. Okay, that will be one row. I'll pick out the other 15 rows, and then I'll sew them together the same way I sewed the blocks and rows together on the top. Okay, the back is finished, and I've added some material to each side of the rows to make it fit the top. And now I just need to sandwich the quilt. Okay, here's the back. Sorry, I forgot to press the record button when I was quilting. And here's the front. You've got the square in the square, the 4-patch, and the chains going this way. Now I just need to trim off the edges and make this even. put on the binding, and it will be finished. Okay, I've got the quilt done, and so now I'm going to take these extra half square triangles that were made and make a little table runner. I did earlier trim these down to 3.5 inch squares because that was a more standard size. So I can probably get 6 by 9 of these, and these are what was left of the strip when I was cutting the 5-inch squares, and I'll just use these for a border around it. It won't be this wide, but I'll just trim it to whatever I want when I get to that point. Then we'll sandwich it, quilt it, and bind it, and then she will have a little table runner or table topper to go with her throw quilt. So I need to get these all lined up in a row so that I don't have 2 of the same ones together. I put the 2 colors together, and then the 2 whites, and then the 2 colors, and it makes the chevron pattern. You'll see a little zigzag. So, and I will sew these together the same way I've sewn everything else together, and put them together, and you'll notice everything is sewn, pressed to the dark side. So I will need to take one of these, flip them over, so that the pressed seams are opposite of each other. Then I will sew down and flip it over and iron it. And I will do that in pairs, and then I will sew the pairs together. And I will work on each row one at a time. So I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, I changed my mind. I'm not going to work in pairs. I'm just going to do the whole row, and that'll make it easier to know which side to press the opposite direction. So I'm just going to get these organized so that I know which side gets sewn and which piece gets sewn to which piece. So this will be the row. And this will be less confusing for me. Okay, so I'll just start here and then sew the next seam, and that is how I'm going to sew each row, and then I'll sew the rows together. Okay, now I just need to put, I think I'll do the ends first. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be enough. So I'll make 2 strips of 5 and then attach them to the ends. Okay, I've sewed the pieces together. I put the middle of the strip, the middle of the table runner. Well, it's more like a table topper. And I will sew along here, then fold it over, iron it. Then I will trim them to 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches, so that it becomes a 2-inch unfinished and a 1.5 inch finished strip. These are 3-inch finished blocks, so I don't want the border to be more than half of the size of the block. So I want a 1.5 finished border. So if I trim this to 1 3/4, then I have that 1/4 inch for the seam allowance with the binding, which will give me a 1.5 inch border. So I hope that was not confusing. So let me get these sewn on, then trimmed, and then I will do the other sides. Okay, I'm just gonna quilt some lines, like maybe a double line here and here on the white, and I haven't quite decided on the color yet, but first I need to baste, I'm gonna stitch in the ditch this outside edge here, and then I will start the lines. Okay, now I need to trim the batting. I need to make sure I trim only the batting and not the backing. And then I can just fold the edge in half and then in half again, and I will have a self-binding and it will be done. Okay, I'm going to trim the backing to 3/4 of an inch, and then I'll be able to fold it in half and fold it over and have my binding. Okay, now start making the binding and then pin it in place, and then I'll be able to sew it down. Okay, I've got the table runner. It's all finished. It's quilted and bound. So now I just have to wash them, and then I can send them off to my sister-in-law, Emma.